Hi guys! In this video, I am going to show you the difference between my paints, and then I'm also going to show you ways that you can use cactus juice. So first we have my Bliss drops, which is a thicker paint. So this is great for creating dimension or texture. Now all of these paints can, in the end, create texture, just depending on how you're using them and layering them. But if you want instant texture, then definitely go for Bliss drops. These are also extremely durable. They're probably my most durable paint out of all of them. I've gotten this on my counters because I clean off a lot of paint in my sink, which I know I shouldn't do, but it is what it is. Anyways, I get so much paint on that sink, and most of it is Bliss drops, and they do not come off. So be careful with this because it can really get on things, and it's a pain to get off. So very, very durable, creates texture, a thicker paint, and it comes with this nice fine tip to create some nice dots. So you can see how thick that is. It's not moving anywhere. Next we have my Painted Desert Acrylics, which is a thinner paint than Bliss drops. So you can see how much thinner it is. Painted Desert Acrylics are really good for creating brush strokes or doing dots. You can also, if you really wanted to, you can thin this down, and I've seen some people do paint pours with Painted Desert Acrylics. Next we have my newest paint called Cactus Juice. Now the difference between Painted Desert Acrylics and Cactus Juice is mainly the consistency. So Cactus Juice is a lot more flowy than Painted Desert Acrylics. And then another difference is Cactus Juice has a lot more mica powder per ounce. So it's a lot more concentrated. So the color is actually going to go a lot further. You do need to stir Cactus Juice before using it. But you can see how much more flowy it is. I'll try to compare. So, I don't know. So very, very flowy. I like to kind of compare it to watercolor because that's how flowy it is. Whereas Painted Desert Acrylics, it's very flowy, but it still has some body to it. I'm not catching any of this, but that's okay. Okay. Now I'm going to use all of them and show you the different ways you can use them as well. Okay, so first we're going to use Bliss drops. So I love using these for creating big plumpy dots. So you can create really nice dots. And with Bliss drops, they are very cloudy at first, but they dry down to be the color that's on the cap. But also keep in mind that the color that you're using as your background can affect some colors of Bliss drops. So just be aware of that. They are also really good at making swooshes. If you have a hard time with making swooshes, Bliss drops make it effortless. Look how nice that is. I don't even have to fix it. Okay, you can also use Bliss drops with a paintbrush if you want. It's a lot less, you know, opaque than if you were using a different paint, but you can pour some out into a paint pot and dip your brush in it, and you can make brush strokes with them if you want to. Some people like doing top brush strokes with Bliss drops just to create a little bit of sparkle. I would not necessarily do like a brush stroke with it, but top brush strokes on another brush stroke can create a really cool effect. So that's Bliss drops, and you can kind of see the texture right there. Okay, next we have Painted Desert Acrylics. So these are great for brush strokes. You can already tell that it created a much better brush stroke than the Bliss drops. You can also dot with it. Okay. And you could, if you really wanted to, you could make a dimensional dot. You would just have to layer. So normally I would maybe let this dry, and then after it's dry I could add more to it and kind of layer it to make a dimensional dot. So you could, if you wanted to, make a dimensional dot with that. And then, like I said before, if you're into paint pouring, you can put like a pouring medium into this, or I think it's called Floetrol, into it, and you can do pouring paint pours with it if you want to. But that is my Painted Desert Acrylics. Next is my newest paint called Cactus Juice. So before using Cactus Juice, you either want to shake it or stir it. Now there's little paint balls in here. I don't know if I can't get one, but you can kind of see them on the side of the jar right there. So where is it? There it is. There's a paintball there. Anyways, so you can shake it and that'll help shake it. Or I do recommend stirring it before you use it. Shaking it can cause a lot of mess on your cap, like this. So to prevent that, I do recommend stirring it instead. And each jar will come with a cactus stir stick. Okay, so with Cactus Juice, you could do paint pours if you want to, because it's already thin. So it's perfect for that. A little bit goes a long way. Also, difference between these two is Cactus Juice is going to have a lot more mica powder per ounce. So this is an ounce and this is also an ounce, but Cactus Juice just has more mica powder or pigment powder in it. So it's more concentrated. So the color is going to go a lot further. So Cactus Juice, great for brush strokes. I do recommend when you're putting your paintbrush in the Cactus Juice, I recommend letting it drip a little bit. And then when it's done dripping, you can bring it over and create your brush stroke. And look how much it travels. Okay, it travels a long way. And the tapering off on it is great compared to if you were using like a matte, like a deco art paint. The tapering off can get a little crazy, but it's super smooth with Cactus Juice. I also want to see how far I can get my brush stroke to travel with Painted Desert Acrylics. So I'm going to try that real quick. Okay, so I got it pretty far, but the difference you can see is the tapering off. And then also look at the color. The color is more vivid with Cactus Juice. And it goes a lot further without breaking off like that. The tapering off is a lot smoother with Cactus Juice than it is with Painted Desert Acrylics. Both great paints to use with brush strokes, but they both give a different kind of look. So Painted Desert Acrylics I would use if you like that kind of translucent look, where it fades into like a translucent tapering off, and then Cactus Juice if you want a really nice, smooth, consistent brush stroke. I would use that. Okay, so great for brush strokes. Also great for creating a background. If you want to coat a background color with Cactus Juice, the coverage goes a long way. With just even one coat, you'll get a nice coverage. With 2 coats, you'll get an even better coverage. But if you're using Cactus Juice as a background and you're trying to put a grid, like a mandala grid on it, or any type of grid, I do recommend doing the Cactus Juice. And then Cactus Juice is very glossy. So after Cactus Juice, I would put down like a matte varnish and then let that fully dry, and then I would do my grid lines. That's going to help get your grid lines to come off at the end. So that's just a little tip there. And then also, when you're creating grid lines with Cactus Juice, be careful of what you're using. So this is watercolor right here. Okay. This is chalk pencil. And this is soapstone. Okay. I'm going to create some dots, and we're going to see how they hold up to the grid lines, because sometimes grid lines can reshape your dots. So okay, so it did a pretty good job on the watercolor, but we do have some little spots that kind of broke off with the watercolor. It's hard to tell, but you kind of see where the watercolor pencil is. It's kind of, it didn't make a full circle. Okay, and then with chalk pencil, I feel like it does a better job. It doesn't really, see, like, I feel like the dots are better with the chalk pencil. And then with soapstone, it also does a good job. So just be careful with what you're creating your grid lines with when using Cactus Juice. I don't recommend using watercolor with Cactus Juice, but chalk pencil and soapstone look to be good. But also, if you really want to use watercolor, I suggest making your grid line and then just slightly erasing it to where you can still see it, but it's hardly there. And then when you make your dots, it shouldn't affect it. Okay? But as you can see, Cactus Juice is also great for creating dots. I again recommend you dipping and letting it drip a little bit before you go in and make your dots. Okay? Another nice thing with Cactus Juice is you can do walking dots, and it goes on forever, basically. So you can dip your tool in, and then I recommend going slow if you want, because the paint is going to like drip down your tool and it's going to keep creating dots. So I feel like the slower the better. If you want to go further. But look at that. Look how many dots I created. Now let's try to go as far as I did here with Painted Desert Acrylics. I'm already running out. So that kind of shows you guys how far cactus juice really goes. Another thing is, if you're creating like on a curved surface, I do recommend Bliss drops for that because they are less likely to slide, whereas Painted Desert Acrylics is thinner. It's more likely to slide. And then Cactus Juice, I would stay away from curved surfaces with Cactus Juice just because it's so thin, it's going to slide. Another thing you can do with Cactus Juice, if you like to do like blow art, you can like put down some paint, and then with a straw, I don't have a straw right now, so I'm just going to blow it. You can kind of blow it around, which is kind of cool. You can make some cool textures with that. So that's another thing you can do with Cactus Juice. And then of course you can use your paintbrush and, you know, kind of paint with it. But it's very flowy, so it does kind of remind me of watercolor in a way. So you can try to do some like watercolor looks with it. Not too sure how it'll look, but there we go. All right, and then also with your Cactus Juice, I do recommend before you're done with it for the day, I do recommend cleaning off the rim of the jar. Sorry guys, I'm trying to get this paper towel. Hold on. So when you're done with the jar for the day, I do recommend cleaning off the rim. It'll make it easier for you to open next time. So I do recommend always cleaning off the rim of your jar before closing it. And then just storing it upright. And then when you're ready to use it, open it and then use your stir stick to stir it and use it again. You can shake it if you want, but it's just going to create a mess on your lid. So just be careful of that. But I think I went through everything. I'm not sure on if Cactus Juice is multi-surface or not, but I know that Painted Desert Acrylics are pretty multi-surface. If you're using them on ceramic, just make sure you're air drying them for a long time. And then, you know, if you want to test out Cactus Juice, I know all these paints work really well on wood, canvas, paper, you know, that kind of stuff. But yeah, if you want to test it out on other surfaces, you're more than welcome to. But I hope that this helped you guys out with figuring out how to use them and how different they are from each other. And I hope you guys enjoy my paints. And if you have any questions, just shoot me a message. Okay, bye-bye.